Hey guys, and here is an episode of the ExFiles, and it feels so good to finally utter that sentence because the last episode that I did of this was 5 months ago, and it was the Kevin episode, and as I have stated in previous videos, I haven't been able to do this because I'm in nursing school. Just, for now on, my excuse for everything will be I'm in nursing school. I don't remember what episode this, what numbered episode this is, but it'll just be in the title. But yeah, I'm so excited to do this because this is actually like one of my favorite things that I actually do if anyone watches these, and I think the only two people who actually watch this is Jessica and Jamie. So hi guys! Yeah. So this time I am going to be a little bit more structured. I wrote notes. Yeah. So, this guy is named Caleb. Gosh, Caleb. Oh, God. Have you ever, like, looked back at your life and just wondered why? It turns out that I've been doing that a lot. Like, throughout this entire series, the question why is just the #1 question I've been asking myself as I've been doing this. So, without much to do, Caleb, this is how, side note, I'm quite literally sitting on my bathroom floor because this place had the best lighting and deal with it. Anyways, so how I met Caleb. So, I met Caleb through Dean, and it was after the whole thing with Kevin ended, and I was pretty sad, but because, as I've probably have stated before, because of the whole Kevin shebang, Dean and I became really good friends, and I became, well, I'd like to think that I became good, or at least decent friends with his group of friends. So during the summer before senior year of high school, still kind of sad over Kevin, I was on Skype, and I was talking to them like we normally would. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh God, we should bring Caleb into the call or something like that. And then half of the group was for it, the other half wasn't. I'm not sure. I don't think Dean wanted him to be there. I can't really remember. And then Caleb came into the call. So Caleb is friends with, like, he went to school with Madison, who is, like, I think one of Dean's closest friends. But anyways, I just remember that he entered into the call and there was just this guy with like a really loud voice and was just really aggressive and just cursed all the time. And I was like, oh, okay. And me, because back in the day, I didn't curse. I was very, like, I guess innocent, and I was really sheltered. And then I forgot whose idea it was, but they were like, hey, we should go to Caleb's and have a pool party. And so, I was kind of like, well, I want to meet new people, and Kevin's going, because for some weird reason, I was still hoping that the whole thing between Kevin and I would work out, which makes me laugh to this day. So, I get the address, I ask my dad if I can go, and he's like, yeah, I'll drop you off. I brought 2 bags of chips, I think they were both Doritos. I show up at the house, and Caleb answers, and I was like, hi, I'm here for the party or whatever. So we hung out in his pool, and like I just remember Kevin ripping off skin from under his feet and like throwing it over the gate, which was like disgusting, but I still like was kind of hoping it would happen. Oh God, I don't know why. So it was Caleb's house. It was me, Michelle 1, who was Dean's girlfriend at the time. He was coming back from China that day, so he didn't really want to do anything. Madison was there, or I think Dean was coming back from China, I can't remember. Yeah, so it was me, Caleb, Kevin, Michelle 1, then Madison. And so, like, Caleb was really nice, and he was talking to me, and I just kind of mentioned that, like, one time Kevin made me so sad that I got drunk, which kind of plays in later. And he was just kind of saying like, yeah, I feel bad for you, all that stuff. And he was nice to me. I ended up being the last person to leave his house. My dad had to go to work or something, and someone needed to drop me off. So so then Caleb was like, oh, I'll drop you off. And I was like, okay, cool. So it was Caleb, his mom, and I think his sister went too. And on the drive, I found out that his mother saw the Dead Kennedys live back in the 80s with Jello Biafra. And at that moment, I just realized that that woman was awesome because, like, Jello Biafra with the Dead Kennedys, like, you can't get cooler than that. And as a punk kid, like, that's really important to me. Just look up the Dead Kennedys if you know who they are. But anyways, so I got to my house and like he gave me a hug. Then I went back into my home and I turned on my computer and I was just like, you know, doing random internet things online. And then I get a text message on my cell phone and I was like, oh, this is weird. And I looked at the message and it was like, hi, it's Caleb. And I just kind of looked at my phone and I was like, okay. All right. And then he was just like, yeah, I got your phone number off of Skype. How are you? And I gotta admit, like, I did my best not to flirt with the guy while I was at his house. I just met him. I was just, I was being nice to him. And I think I'm pretty sure I was still pining over Kevin. But then, like, as I was home, he was texting me. And he was flirting with me. And this isn't important, but it's important to me. But like on TV, they were showing the Tall Hot Blonde story, which is one of my favorite, it's one of my favorite documentaries. And they were going over that whole crime thing, which just look it up. It's great. It's awesome. And like I was like texting this guy, and he was just I don't even remember. And he flirted with me first, so then I flirted back, and I guess I really liked the attention, so that's why I decided to have a crush on him, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And I just, I wasn't even really thinking about, having a crush on him until he said, why don't we just admit that we like each other? And I was like, well, okay. And I was really flattered because, that was the first time a guy ever went out of his way to talk to me, because I feel like I'm always the one who's initiating it. But no, this, I just felt as if this was really the first time that a guy had a crush on me first and went out of his way to get my attention. And to me that was special because, again, that never happened to me. So I guess we just started calling each other and talking to each other, and it was always at night for some reason. But the biggest issue that I had with him was that he wasn't Christian and he was agnostic. So I didn't really know how to deal with that because I was always taught, and I actually do believe that as a Christian I should only date and marry other Christians, which I will admit that I did break a different time that's gonna have its own ExFile episode, so stay tuned. So yeah, I just kind of think that as a Christian I should only date fellow believers. But this guy was really persistent, and he was like, yeah, but we can, I don't even remember what he said, but I think at that moment I put myself in front of God, where I was just like, I like this guy really likes me, and he gives me attention that I've been wanting, and fuck you, Kevin, because you hurt me. And maybe I went out with Caleb in order to get over Kevin. I don't even remember. It was kind of a long time ago, but religion was always a topic that would come up, and he was he said that he was okay with me being a Christian because I actually followed what I believed, or follow what Christians say they believe. So he respected me for that. And around this time in my life, I decided that I didn't want to kiss anyone until I was engaged, and I made that into a big deal. And I told him that, and he was just like, but the physical aspect of a relationship is really important, which I will admit that I agree to. And I was just like, well, I don't want to kiss anyone until I'm engaged. And he was just like, okay, I'll wait. But you see, Caleb is very interesting, and I don't want to say manipulative, but he's good with words. And I remember one time on the phone, I just kind of said, like, yeah, I kind of thought about kissing you the other day. And then he twisted it to, I'm really glad you decided to let me kiss you. And I'm just, like, sitting there like, I didn't stand up for myself for some reason. But anyways, okay, so he really wanted to go out with me, so I would kind of bring up an issue, but then he would bring up something else. At the time, I was very, very strict on my dating ideals, I guess you can say. So he would say things like, I would say something like, I don't really think that I should date anyone unless I can see myself marrying them, and I can't see myself marrying you because you're not a Christian. And then, like, we talked about it, and we were just like, well, we can go out, but then we could just break up when we graduate high school. And to me, that's like, no, because I'm going to get really attached to you, and then I'm just going to break up with you. Like, that's not how relationships work. You should kind of have a mindset where, like, I'm in this for the long haul, or, like, I'm going to do my best even when things go sour. So we were just a damn mess, honestly. So anyways, like, as time goes on, my dad, he picked up on that, like, he picked up on the fact that, there was someone in my life, kind of, because I would call him all the time at night, and my dad was like, so who are you talking to? I'm like, oh, just some guy that I met, and my dad was not happy. I kind of brought up to my father what was going on, because, me and my dad are close. And my dad was not happy about it, because for him, he's like, okay, you just met this guy and you're calling him every night and you want to, like, be his girlfriend. Like, you just met him. Which, I don't even, like, yeah, so there's that. I remember, like, one thing specifically was that, like, I was on Skype, and then Caleb, Maddie, and Michelle 1 were just like, hey guys, let's go to the movies. So I decided, yeah, I'll go to the movies, but at that, like, I kept on going back and forth between, yes, I'll date you, and no, I don't want to date you because I can't, or I can make it work, or, like, no, because Jesus. So, I ended up going to the movies, and we saw Contagion, and, like, every time that movie pops up, I can't, like, not think about him. But yeah, so I remember going to the movie house, and my dad was like, I don't really want you to go if it's just Caleb. And I was like, no, Dad, other people are going to be there. And then so I was sitting in the car with my father, and he's like, this isn't good, Kim. He probably lied to you, so it's just you and him. And then he saw Michelle 1 walk over to the movie house, and he was like, oh, okay, Michelle's here, you can go. So it was like Michelle, Maddie, Caleb, then me. And I just remember that, like, Caleb was, he was, like, trying to hold my hand, but I was like, no, I can't date you. And then eventually around the end of the movie, I, like, let him hold my hand, but I didn't do anything. I just, like, held my hand like a dead fish, and it just was just there, like, plopped. But he was like, he called me that night, and he was like, I was so happy when you sat next to me, and I got to hold your hand. And I was like, okay. It was just, I think the reason why this whole thing was really hard for me is because I always wanted someone to ask me out, but when someone finally did ask me out, they weren't the right person for me. But, live and learn. But anyways, going on. Okay, so I'm going off my notes. I hope you're proud that I got notes. Yeah. So, I don't really know how it happened, but we came up with a deal. Like, if he went to church with me once, I would go out with him. So he went to church with me. It was September 11th. And, like, side note, this guy's, like, super patriotic and, like, really into the military and stuff. So it was a very interesting day. And, like, it was just so hard for me, honestly. It's just, like, okay, it was hard for me because it was hard for me to worship next to him. It was hard, like, in church, I, like, have a notebook and I write notes. And it was just hard for me to write notes because he was sitting next to me, and, like, I don't know why it was so awkward, but it just, like, was. Because I know that he wasn't there for Jesus, he was there because of me. And I tried to, like, think of it through a missionary dating perspective, which is a terrible idea, and no one should do it, because it's just, It's exhausting. It's really exhausting. It takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot out of you spiritually and emotionally because you really care about this person, but they don't see the need. They don't see the need for Christ, which like is hard because like, you know, soapbox time. Like, you know, like without Christ, someone goes to hell, and why would you want your loved one to go to hell? Like, so that was hard. But anyways, we went to, like, after going to church, my dad took us to Sizzler. Oh gosh, I remember that. And then I remember this one point where my dad left to use the bathroom, and then as soon as he left, we like jumped sort of and like to hold hands because we couldn't, because my dad did not want me to date anyone, and that was like a thing that Caleb didn't like, that my dad was like controlling, which like I kind of understand. But anyways, so Caleb and I went out, were officially boyfriend and girlfriend for an entire week. My dad knew what was going on, and then at the end of the week, my, like, you know, I was like happy, but at the same time kind of miserable because I had the two conflicting, like, you know, I'm a Christian and I'm dating someone who doesn't love Jesus, and honestly, Caleb wasn't a good fit for me in general because he and I did have different worldviews. We saw life differently. We spoke differently. We acted differently. Just, it wasn't a good match. But the thing is, I guess I wanted a relationship so badly that I turned away from that, and I was like, well, I want a relationship, so I'm just gonna put up with it. And I just remember sitting and thinking like, well, I know that this relationship is probably gonna like go to hell, so I'll just enjoy the ride until this whole thing explodes, which is a terrible thing to say. I mean, I was in high school. This is all when I was 17. But okay, so my favorite story from this entire relationship with Caleb was, so Dean and Caleb at the time were frenemies. They would kind of hang out, but they didn't necessarily like each other. I don't really understand the whole entire story, but I sat down and I think it was like very early in school, probably like the third week. I sat down and I was sitting next to Dean in, it was English. I look over at Dean and I was like, hey Dean, guess what? I met Caleb. We're dating now. And then Dean, like looked at me, got up from his seat and looked like he was about to throw up and like walked out the door, and he had like this look of disgust and what the fuck on his face. I will never forget that moment where Dean just looked at me, was disgusted, got up, and like he walked to the trash can. And I followed him and I was like, what's wrong? Well, it's probably, and like, I don't know why I do this, but I was like, well, Dean, it'll be okay. Probably won't work out anyways. But yeah, so Dean was like, you know what, Kim, do what you want in your life, but Caleb is bad news. And, you know, Dean is a very important part of this story, now that I think about it, but yeah. But I would just kind of talk to Dean about it, and Dean was just like, Kim, I don't really think it's a good idea because he's just really obsessed with physical things, and he's just going to take advantage of you. And I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think that he liked me for me, not because he wanted to sleep with me. But like, what ends up happening is like he, as I mentioned before, he manipulated I thought about us kissing into, I'm glad that you're gonna let me kiss you. So there was that, and then sex came up a few times, and I was just like, no, I want to wait till I'm married. And again, he was like, well, okay, but you can kind of tell that he said it reluctantly, as in okay, like I'm only saying okay, but I'm gonna try to change your mind later on. And like Dean said that was a thing that he did. Michelle One, who also dated Caleb in the past, she said that it was a thing that he did, that he's really good at like changing words around. So yeah, anyways, back to my notes. So we dated for a week, and then at the end of the week, my dad sat me down and he was like, Kim, I don't want you to date him because you just met him. So I was like, Dad, I agree with you, because this whole time I feel as if God has been tugging at my heart that this isn't a good idea. Because again, like, I think that if you're a Christian, you should only date other Christians, because, you know, my faith is very important to me, and why would I want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't share the same faith as me? Because, like, I'm very passionate about Christ, and to be with someone who's not passionate about Christ, it's just, there's no, like, it's just really off balance, and it's just not gonna work, honestly. So that night, I called Caleb on the phone, and again, like, before this time, we went back and forth between, let's date, no, I can't date you, and it was me the whole time, because Caleb just wanted to date me, and he had, like, no doubt about that. But anyways, I was just, oh yeah, side note, that entire time, I was trying to witness to him, and it was, like, the first time that I ever shared my faith with someone else, so that made me kind of happy, but still, like, that night I called him and I was like, hey, I talked to my dad and we can't be together anymore. And then there was a silence and he was just like, I have to go. And he was crying. And that was like the end of it, kind of. Not really. I still tried to talk to him afterwards because, like, I was trying, like, I guess, like, in my own selfishness, I was trying to get him back. Even though I knew that it would not work out and we would just end up breaking up anyways, and like it'd be like a on-again, off-again relationship like it was before. But yeah, like when I called him after we officially ended things, or I officially ended things, he was just so boring over the phone. I think the only reason why I was interested or whatever was because, like, the only thing keeping the conversation alive was, you're so pretty, Kim, or I really want to be with you right now, or oh my god, Caleb, you're so sweet. Like, that was the only thing we talked about. We didn't really talk about anything else. We just talked about how much we wanted to date each other. And, like, what kind of relationship is that? Every time religion came up, he would be like, I don't want anything to do with religion, and I would try to convince him that, like, no, Jesus loves you. And then, like, we would talk about kissing, and, like, I guess we had the PG or the G version of phone sex in that he would talk about how he would kiss me, and I thought that was really, like, again, like, that never happened to me before, and so it was a whole learning experience. But yeah, like, the only thing that we ever had in common to talk about was, like, how much we wanted to be with each other, and, like, that's lame. There should be other things that people talk about. But anyways, so, yeah, the conversations were super boring after that, and so, time goes on, and this is kind of another random thing that, like, makes me a little sad to this day. The day that me and my dad took him to church, like, I had these earrings that I loved, and then I lost one of those earrings at his house, and that made me sad. Also, he's a really big fan of He is a very big fan of Soundgarden, and after this whole thing went down, I could not listen to Soundgarden at all, and Soundgarden made me sad. And, oh, he really was into the military. He talked to my dad a lot about the military. He is really into firefighting. His dad's a firefighter, and all he ever really talks about is firefighting. Yeah. Well, anyways, boring conversations, moving on. Probably like a week or two, not even less than a month after Caleb and I officially ended things, I was sitting next to Dean in English again, and I forgot how, but Caleb came up, and then Dean said, oh yeah, Caleb has a new girlfriend, and I was like, wait, what? I was, like, distraught, because it hadn't even, like, the wounds were still fresh for me. It hadn't even been a month, and I was like, oh, who is it? And he's like, oh, some girl that, like, he said her name, and I was like, oh my god, like, they've been friends for a really, really long time. And I was like, I didn't cry, but I was so shocked. The first words out of my mouth, however, were, after he told me Caleb has a new girlfriend, was, is she prettier than me? Priorities, kids. Priorities. I didn't ask how he was doing. I didn't ask if he was happy. I asked, is his girlfriend prettier than me? And, well, let's just say that I looked up a couple pictures and I think we all know who would win that argument. Narcissism is my best friend sometimes. But anyways, yeah, so I was kind of upset over Caleb and Kevin actually throughout senior year. And who knows, maybe the only reason why I went out with Caleb was to get over Kevin. Caleb brought that up, and you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the main reason. But it was a very big motivating factor, but I think that the main reason was I really just wanted to be in a relationship with someone. So yeah, I was pretty messed up, and I still kind of am now. Anywho, years later, after this whole thing went down, I hadn't talked to Caleb in years. Sophomore year of college, I get a message on Skype from him, and he's like, "Hey Kim, how's it going?" And so I immediately apologized profusely for what I put him through in high school, and he's like, "Oh no, don't worry about it." And then he invited me to go to Amoeba with him and Maddie, and I wanted to go, but then my gut was like, man, maybe not, so I didn't go. But, so we didn't talk, so after that we didn't really talk as much, and then, this Christmas break, I don't really know how it happened, but he and I spoke again, and it was around Christmas time, and he invited me over to his house to play, I think I was like, "Hey Caleb, it's been a while, why don't we catch up and get some coffee or something?" I don't even know why I decided to do that. Maybe it was I wanted to see if it could work. I honestly don't know why I contacted him again, but I did, and so I went over to his house then he was like, "Oh yeah, hey, me and my friends are going to be playing card games. You want to come over and play?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." So we played some card games about winning a princess's heart, and there was cubes involved. It was a fun game after I understood how to play it. And then we played Settlers of Catan. Settlers of Catan is boring. I'm sorry. I don't understand why people like that game. It's boring. But yeah, so I try to be all tough and stuff, and I cursed a lot and all that jazz. But then it was someone's idea to get food at McDonald's, and I drove. Yeah, so I don't even know how the conversation began, but then Caleb just started to talk about how he got drunk, something about getting drunk a lot, which was, weird to me, because when he and I were, dating, or, had the back and forth thing senior year of high school, he always kind of said how he didn't, how he thought drinking and drugs were stupid because he had a cousin die of a heroin overdose, and he always would bring up, you keep on saying, I told him that, I got drunk because I was sad over Kevin, and then he kept on, and he would bring it up, in an argument, kind of in an argumentative way, in you say that I'm not good enough to date you because I'm not a Christian, but you yourself get drunk sometimes, which, is a good point, kind of, in that, you say that you're a Christian and you think you're all perfect, but you're not because you screw up. How do I say this? He had a point in that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're perfect, but that shouldn't be an excuse that people use to say no to Christ, because, where am I going with this? Christ loves you even though you screw up, but that doesn't mean that you have the license to screw up whenever you want. But I kind of forgot what point I was trying to make. But he kept on bringing up the fact that I got drunk, and he would say oh, it's a bad thing and you're not as perfect as you say you are because of this flaw in you. So anyways, that day he was that day at McDonald's, he just kept on talking about how he got drunk and how sometimes he does drugs. Meaning weed. Just weed. And I was just kind of sitting there this is new. I'll admit that growing up in a Christian environment, you are in kind of this bubble where you're in this bubble where like people don't really talk about drugs or alcohol that much. But anyways, like, you know, I was just kind of taken aback because I guess I have like this image of him in my head, the kid who didn't drink, the kid who didn't do any sort of recreational drugs. And then like it was there in my face like so aggressively. And then then I don't know how the conversation came up, but then girls came up and I was the only chick there. And they were talking about different sexual things that they did with like girlfriends, or like this one girl like wasn't even a girlfriend of his. She just really liked him, and apparently she was just like, I don't care, do whatever you want, and he took advantage of that. And I just remember being so sad and like shocked. And I was just kind of sad at the way that they spoke about women. And even like, okay, even though like maybe at the time they were dating, but I just feel as if like there are certain things you don't share with other people, whether or not you're still with the person. And I just kind of found what they said about what they did with girls in the past. I just found it to be like, I felt dirty just kind of being there. And I just got really, really quiet because I was just so shocked and distraught, and I didn't even really know how to respond to anything. When we got back to Caleb's house, I just like went over to the side and I was like, I need a moment to just like sit and think about it. But then we started to play the cube game again, and I was just quiet the entire time because I didn't know how to take it or how to respond to what I just heard. Because like as a girl though, it's like if I were to I'm not saying that I would, but if I were to do something sexual with my boyfriend, I wouldn't want him to tell anyone. I would want him to like not say anything, or if something happened, he would just kind of like mention it and just never really get into detail. And it's like, these were girls you're not even dating anymore. Just show some respect. It just sounded really disrespectful, and I was kind of sad. So that moment I realized that I wasn't as hardcore as I thought I was. But at the same time, I was very happy that I didn't do anything with Caleb, because I didn't want to be just some other girl that he did something with. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be just another name or just another... Yeah, I don't want to be just another name or just another conquest. I'm a human being and I deserve respect even if we break up. So I'm like, you know what? If he considers me to be the crazy Christian girl for the rest of his life, I'm totally fine with that. I would much rather be I'd much rather have that title than like me doing something with him and then him telling his buddies about it. Like, I don't like... Again, there are certain things that you do in private that stay private as like a sign of respect to the other person, even if things went really, really terribly. So yeah, there's that. Anyways, that's kind of like the end of the whole Caleb thing. I mean, I asked him, like, we kind of had this, like, hey, you want to get coffee the very next day? And that didn't happen. I'm okay with that. I haven't talked to him since, really. Well, like, his birthday came up and I just told him, hey, happy birthday. That's about it. But yeah, so after this 33-minute long video, which will get longer now, here are the two things that I learned about myself. The first thing was, I was willing to give up something that I really wanted in order for I was willing to give up something that I really wanted for a very long time for the sake of God. And to me, I was happy about that because it just showed me that how it just kind of, in a weird way, I proved to myself how much I loved God. Again, like the fact that I gave up something that I really, really wanted because I knew that God wanted something else for me. So I was very proud of myself. I remember, like, my yearbook quote was inspired by him because one day he called, like, I remember once over the phone, he called me a zealot. And most people would be like, and I remember him saying, I realize that most people find that as an insult, and in a way I kind of meant it in a derogatory way, but I know that you take it in a very complimentary way, which is very true. When he called me a zealot, it was one of the sweetest things that anyone ever called me. And I just remember my yearbook quote, senior year of high school, was, "You say zealot like it's a bad thing. Soli Deo Gloria," which is Latin for "to God alone be the glory." But yeah, just like my yearbook quote was inspired by him and directed to all the people who think lesser of me because I love God. So anyways, that was point number 1, that I was very proud of myself for. I had a very wow moment that I was willing to give up something that I really, really wanted because I wanted to follow Christ instead, or I wanted what was best for me because of Jesus. Yeah. Second thing that I learned was God's protection of me. How, like, again, kind of going back to speaking disrespectfully about women, God just, he really protected me in that I didn't kiss Caleb. I didn't do anything with Caleb at all, or with anyone really. And like, yeah, God just protected me the entire time so that my name wouldn't have to be so that my name wouldn't have to be dragged through the mud as some other conquest by some guy. So just to restate my point, I guess, I'd much rather be a religious zealot and have people make fun of me for that than do something with a guy, have him tell his friends, and then mock me. Because I deserve to be respected, and I deserve to be respected whether or not the relationship ended well. So yeah, that's Caleb's story. It's kind of part of the reason why I like doing these is because it forces me to look back at all of my idiocy, and it also causes me to look back and realize, wow, God really protected me, or wow, that's what I learned. And side note, I should have started off like this, but Caleb looks like a less attractive version of Sacha Baron Cohen. Just let that sink in. So with that, this concludes this episode of the ExFiles, and I'm so glad that I finally got to make this. It's been 5 months since the last one, and again, because I'm on break, I now have time to make a whole bunch of new videos. Most of them will probably be the ExFiles. I have 3 for sure coming up. There's 5 potential episodes. 3 for sure are gonna go up. The other 2 I'm hesitant on making because I'm still really close friends with those guys and I don't want to fuck up a friendship because I decided to make a stupid video. So this episode is very, very long, but hey, I'm back finally doing this. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.